Thank you, Jason, for the tag. Tag 2, this tweet from Lyle, which reads, Department of Homeland Security funded Take This. Just put out a document demanding that game companies denounce what they're calling Gamergate 2. The attached image showing a tweet from this Rachel person saying, hate, harassment, and toxic behavior have no place in games. By taking direct targeted action in a timely manner, we can mitigate further harm to talented, dedicated folks in games and help prevent additional recurrences of these harmful events. And linking to, as mentioned, an article over on Take This. So what is takethis.org? Well, they say on their own website, our mission is to decrease the stigma and increase the support for mental health in the game enthusiast community and inside the game industry. Our vision is a game community that welcomes and supports people experiencing mental health challenges and that recognizes the humanity and mental health of game creators. They further say, we normalize mental health challenges and recognize and honor intersectional experiences. We approach change and mental wellness broadly, from empowering individuals to enacting systematic change, focused on leadership and cultural norms and practices. We foster healthy, inclusive community by focusing on collaboration and partnership. And we take an evidence-based approach to our mental health content and programming. Take This is a mental health advocacy organization with a focus on the game industry and community. We provide resources, training, and support individuals and companies that help the gaming community improve its mental well-being and resilience. The organization addresses the underlying conditions that can create and perpetuate mental health challenges, stigma, harmful studio culture, harassment and toxicity, lack of diversity and accessibility, and problematic game and community design. They also claim to be a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And as Niche Gamer would write about this, saying, as for the government ties to Take This, the Department of Homeland Security at least partially funds the organization. You can see their disclaimer for yourself here. In the text reading, this work is made possible by a grant from the Department of Homeland Security. And so they have this article, as mentioned, that was posted on March 11th titled Responding to Gamergate 2. This seems to be directly related to the recent Sweet Baby Inc. situation, in which gamers have been calling out some of the massive corruption going on in the industry. In my opinion, there is no Gamergate 2 as they're trying to say. There is just, as I simply put, gamers recently calling out the ever-growing corruption in the industry, particularly the AAA space, with companies becoming more and more predatory in their monetization schemes, their products, and their live service offerings, etc., etc. With consultancy firms like Sweet Baby Inc. recently getting criticized more and more for their roles in the increasingly corrupt AAA games industry. Now, these corpos and journalists would love to propagate this Gamergate 2 rhetoric because they can, to be quite frank, grift a lot of money out of that situation. If they have a Gamergate 2 as they seem to want, they'll be able to write all these articles, potentially try and get more donations and funding, and it all comes down to money. And so let's go hop over back to their article responding to Gamergate 2. They say, if you're reading this, you've probably been hearing about what's now being called Gamergate 2. It's the latest targeted harassment campaign within the game industry, and it's aimed at Sweet Baby Inc. And they link here to an article by Kotaku. The very Kotaku article that was recently criticized by many people all over the internet and all over the world. To be quite frank, many people from many different countries talking about how this article is extremely misleading and divisive and not accurate at all in talking about the situation, and rather it's just running a defense for the corpos over at Sweet Baby Inc. Which, by the way, as I pointed out in some of my segments talking about Sweet Baby Inc., they themselves, their executives, have said some very bigoted things about people, including black people, Jewish people, white people, and Take This claims to care about the mental health of people, yet here they are, apparently defending Sweet Baby Inc., which is a very bigoted, corrupt firm. Anyways, back to Take This's article. So, after they link to Kotaku, they say, a Montreal-based narrative development studio in regards to SBI, Sweet Baby Inc., saying, the campaign has also been impacting entities and games associated with Sweet Baby, journalists covering the issue, and others associated in various ways with the targets. You also may be at a loss, to know how to talk about this issue and what, if anything, you can do about it. That's where we come in. Discord, Steam, and X have been predominant platforms where the abuse and harassment has been taking place. In these spaces, lists of game studios, companies, and associated organizations are being circulated for targeting by members of the mob. The lists are literally just informing people about the involvement of SBI and saying like, yo, you might not want to buy this if you don't want to support SBI, which again is a very corrupt, bigoted firm, as I've pointed out, and will continue to point out because it's very important to point that out. Why are they defending this? It's really weird. Anyways, continuing. Large-scale harassment. Actually, we know why they're defending it, right? It comes down to money, as mentioned, but they'll never admit that. Continuing. Large-scale harassment campaigns like this fuel and are fueled by political events. As political rhetoric heats up ahead of the US presidential election later this year, this kind of online activity is going to ramp up, and it's important to understand that these phenomena are interrelated. Wow, the gaslighting there is absolutely insane. So people will lie right to your face and gaslight people and manipulate people and then claim to care about mental health. Yep. As scholars and journalists have noted, the targeted harassment, hate, and cultural norms that were at the heart of Gamergate in the mid-2010s never went away. People in game spaces, especially marginalized developers and content creators, face hate and harassment daily. In fact, research conducted by Take This has outlined an entire spectrum and a typology of extremism and dark participation in games that is bigger than any one movement but underlines all of them. It can be scary or uncomfortable to think about, to talk about, and to understand. In overwhelming situations, it's not unusual to feel at a loss or to have thoughts of helplessness, but there are things we can do to mitigate the harm. And so they go on to list various ways that people can help others who are currently dealing with harassment. And to be quite frank, you know, that's not bad. That's fine and fair enough. The issue going on here is like in the next part, the next paragraph here for industry leaders, they continue to propagate this whole like Gamergate rhetoric. And they're not addressing the issue at large, which is the various corruption involved with these industries. And again, they're completely ignoring like the bigoted things that Sweet Baby Inc. has said, because they apparently seem to care about bigotry, right? So why do they ignore it when it's coming from a consultancy firm like Sweet Baby Inc. if they genuinely care about calling that stuff out and stopping it? It makes it seem disingenuous. It makes it seem like it's, once again, all about the money. Like, for example, Sweet Baby Inc. was concerned about their finances being impacted in a negative way with people saying they don't want to buy games associated with SBI, with Sweet Baby Inc. And now we've got this message allegedly from the co-founder of Sweet Baby Inc.'s LinkedIn account, in which they actually talk about reaching out to journalists to cover the situation. And as we know, a lot of the articles that have come out about the situation have been extremely manipulative and dishonest. That recurring theme continues here, where David says, "For the past 4 months, my company, SBI, has been targeted by a far-right harassment campaign / conspiracy theory." So it's interesting that he's trying to paint this out as like a far-right situation, when a lot of people all over the political spectrum have been calling out this corruption. You got people on the left who've been calling it out, people who are apolitical calling it out, and yes, also people on the right calling it out, but them simply being on the right does not alone make them far right. And then saying conspiracy theory, which is very interesting because the majority of people in the situation have been criticizing the very things that SBI has said on their various posts, on their own website, and even on record on video. So it really seems like SBI and their Corpo buddies are desperately trying to paint a narrative that is just not true. We've already seen various journalists attempting to lie about the situation and manipulate others about the situation, and that narrative has largely failed. While some people did fall for it, the majority of people all across the political spectrum have seen the dishonesty of those articles, and they have largely backfired. And so now they get increasingly desperate, trying to paint this out as Gamergate 2, trying to escalate the situation even further, doing everything except addressing their own bigotry and corruption. Guess I'll leave it there. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this segment, please consider liking and or subscribing. I truly do appreciate your support, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day.